Please don't forget to turn your cameras on before we start. Okay, guys. So we have some new students today. So, and we're going to continue working on the speaking section. So for those of you who just joined the course, this week we're working on the speaking section. And well, anybody here remembers how many tasks we had in the speaking? Maybe you, Shamir, that you were here before?
Maybe 4.
Yes, we have 4 tasks. So we have 4 tasks in the speaking section, and today we're going to be working on the last one, on task 4. Okay, that's what we're going to be doing. It's not a problem for those of you who just joined the course. We'll continue with the other ones, well, almost at the end of the course, so we'll work on them as well. But today we'll start with task 4. Okay, so let's get there. Now, before we do that, before we look at task 4, I also think it's important to, I don't know, if somebody can tell you guys a little bit about the way that they speak, the way that they score the speaking section. So does anyone remember how they scored the speaking section? What were the rubrics, the things that they were looking for in the speaking? Maybe Luciana or Shamir? Any of you guys?
Coherence on what you are saying.
Okay, yes, perfect. That's one of the things, coherence. Anything else you remember?
Yes, the use of transition words.
Exactly, the use of transition.
And in most cases, to give a conclusion is very important.
Okay, yeah, the structure. Okay, guys, so before we start looking at that task, since those of you who just joined maybe are not aware of this, so this is basically what they're looking for in general for the speaking section. Okay, they basically scored your speaking section based on 3 different criteria: topic development, delivery, and language use. Okay, as you can see here on my screen. So it's pretty easy to remember. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the previous slide. It's pretty easy to remember. Topic development basically refers to what you're saying. And this is what Lucia was saying, to how coherent what you're saying is, whether it makes sense, if it's logical, if you're actually answering the question that they're asking. So this is about the content of your response. So how you manage your time as well, how explained and how well supported it is. So everything related to what you're saying, and also the way that you're structuring your response. So this has to do with the use of connectors, the use of transitions to help you flow a little bit more, to help you connect your ideas. This is what Shamir was saying, right? The use of transitions, connectors, and all that. Now, delivery has to do with the way that you say it, so how you say it. Now, this has to do with the way you speak, right? How clear it is, how easy to understand it is, how you're pronouncing the words, you're intonating your sentences, you're articulating the words, and basically how easy it is to understand what you're saying. The easier it is for the listener, the better for you, for your score. Also, how fluent you are. So this means basically whether you're making maybe too many pauses or using too many filler words, and it's not so, so clear, the expression of ideas. So that is the how you say it. And basically the last one, language use, it has to do with the tools that you use to help you express those ideas. So this is all about vocabulary. So the words that you're using, how appropriate they are, how extensive they are, how complex they are maybe, and also the grammar that you use. If you're maybe making some grammar mistakes here and there, if you're showing grammar variety. So that is basically what they're looking for, okay? Content, you need to actually answer the question. You need to be clear in how you speak, And you need to try to show that you have some, complexity in your vocabulary and grammar, and that you use them appropriately. Okay, guys, so any questions before we start the class then with task 4? Okay, so let's get started. Please don't forget your cameras. And let's go. Okay, guys. So task 4, this is what we call the lecture question. It's the last one in the speaking section. And I don't know, it depends on the way you see it, but some people say it's the hardest, mainly because of the content. Okay, we're gonna see what it's about. So actually the structure is pretty simple. This is what you guys are gonna have to do. You're gonna listen to a university lecture. So you're just gonna listen to an audio file. It lasts kind of 1.5 minutes approximately. And after you listen to that lecture, you're gonna have to summarize it. And in order to summarize, they will give you 20 seconds for you to prepare your response. So you'll have 20 seconds for yourself to think about what you're gonna say, and 60 seconds to speak. So you will have to summarize this lecture in 60 seconds, in 1 minute. Okay, so you listen to a lecture, an audio file, you have 20 seconds to prepare your response and 1 minute to speak. So is this okay so far, the structure? Any questions about what you have to do so far? Okay. So honestly, I think that the best thing, generally speaking, for the test, in order to get a good score, the best thing you can do is try to understand the structure and be prepared to, and know what you're going to expect from the test. So we know what to expect from this lecture. We know how the structure is, and this is going to help you big time then create and structure your own response. So in this lecture, which is a college or a university lecture, you're going to have a professor that's speaking, right? Remember, we call university teachers are called professors. So from now on, when you're referring to this person that's speaking, you're going to call them the professor. Okay? So this professor is going to be explaining an academic topic. Okay? It will be something academic related to the sciences, the humanities. I'm going to tell you what the topics are in a bit, but it's going to be something academic. And this lecture is going to be structured in this way. These are the elements that your lecture will have. The first one is obviously an introduction. So in the introduction, you'll have a general idea of what the topic is going to be. So, for example, can anybody think of an academic topic? Something that comes to mind.
The global warming, environmental problems,
Okay.
the development of the technology, I don't know, and also social topics and historical themes.
Okay, all right, those are really good examples. So yeah, let's take the first one. So global warming, environmental issues. Let's go with global warming. So let's just say that your topic here is global warming. So in the introduction, they will tell you that. The professor will tell you something like, today we're going to be looking at global warming. And maybe it's very likely that you also have a short definition there or an explanation. So you may have something like a definition. So they will define what global warming is to you. Now, my best advice here in the introduction, please don't take any notes. Okay, by the way, when you're listening, you're supposed to be taking notes. Okay, you're allowed to take notes, and it's a great idea to do so. But when you're listening the introduction, please don't take any notes. So just pay attention to what the professor's saying and try to understand the general idea, what the topic is. If you have any sorts of definitions or explanations or examples in there, just listen to them. Don't worry you won't need them for your response, okay? Just pay attention. Try to understand the topic. And after the introduction is over, they will always do this. They will divide or break down this topic into 2 different subtopics. You will always have 2 subtopics in there. So 2 big divisions of the topic, we could say. So for instance, if we're talking about global warming, maybe we can talk about 2 causes of global warming, right? Maybe we can mention 2 causes of global warming, 2 things that have caused global warming. So maybe one could be, I don't know, let's say, I don't know, water contamination, right? The contamination of oceans and stuff. In the other one could be, I don't know, let's just say air contamination, right? So factories and all that. So let's say that those are the 2 subtopics, the 2 things that have caused global warming. So now again, in each one, you may have a short definition as well. So maybe they will define what water contamination is, and they will also define what air contamination is. So you will have a short definition in there. Now, this is important, okay? So when you're listening to the subtopics, you do have to take notes. You need to make sure that you catch what those 2 subtopics are. And if you have a definition, you also need to be able to understand what it is. Okay, so those are really important elements, the subtopics and their definitions. And finally, one more thing that you'll have is 2 examples. So for each one, you'll have 2 specific examples illustrating that certain subtopic. So if we're talking about water contamination, maybe you have the Pacific Ocean, I don't know, and some sort of process. So they will give you an example for that. And if we're talking about air contamination, maybe they'll give you another one. I don't know, let's say, maybe the name of a specific factory, or maybe, I don't know, let's say, maybe the name of some gases. You know, they talk about CO2. I don't know, but they will give you some specific examples. Okay, and that's basically how it's gonna be. So you will have an introduction where you have the topic, probably a definition, 2 subtopics and their definitions, sometimes, and 2 examples. Okay. So any questions so far as for the structure? Okay. Now you may also have some other additional details. So sometimes they include many things that are not really important. So you just need to be paying attention and trying to catch those 4 elements, okay? The 2 subtopics and the 2 examples. I'd say that that's the most important thing for you to do here. So is this okay so far? No questions for you? Okay. Yes, Marco?
So in which part do we have to take notes?
Okay, great question. So you are supposed to take notes, I mean, the whole time that you're listening to the lecture. So you could take notes of everything. My advice, try to take notes only on these elements. So the first, the second subtopic, their definition, some keywords, and the examples. So if you have anything for the intro, don't worry too much. If you have any other additional details, you don't have to take that many notes. So just try to understand what the 2 subtopics and the 2 examples are mainly. Okay?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, guys. And here are the topics. By the way, remember I was telling you, I'm gonna tell you what the topics are. So we actually know what this is very likely gonna be about. And if you were here last class, then you remember it's the same as for the previous task. But anyways, these are the ones. So psychology, biology, and business are the most common topics that you can find in this task. Like 35% of the time you get a psychology or a biology one, and 25% of the time you get a business topic or a business subject. So my advice, the reason why I'm telling you what the topics are is because it will be great if you can become familiarized with the vocabulary, with some expressions, if you can do some reading about these topics, if you can listen to some lectures, some TED Talks, some articles, anything that you can find related to these psychology, biology, and business topics. Now, of course, this is not supposed to be something so complex that you don't understand, because maybe you're not familiarized with these areas, but it's supposed to be something simple, right? Something that everybody's supposed to, that everybody can understand. So try to maybe do some reading, check out some vocabulary, and that will help. Now, there are some cases in which you have other sorts of topics. So maybe you have art, you have history, you have sociology, geology, literature. There are some cases, but it's like very unlikely that you have something different than the first three. Okay, so even when you practice, if you practice with official TOEFL tests, you'll find that like 90% of the time you have psychology, biology, and business. So practice with those. Okay, it's not going to be anything too complicated. I think we talked about this. Psychology is just how our mind works, biology, animals and plants. In business, it's mostly advertisement and marketing. So is this okay here? Any questions now? Okay, guys. So before I give you some tips and we start looking at the response, let's take a look at an example. Okay, let's see how it's actually gonna be. So we're gonna watch this. Share my sound. Okay, guys. So this is pretty close to what you'll see on your test day. I'm gonna. Okay, sorry. Okay, guys, I'm sorry. Here we go.
Number 4. In this question, you will listen to a short lecture. You will then be asked to summarize important information from the lecture. After you hear the question, you will have 20 seconds to prepare your response and 60 seconds to speak. Listen to part of a lecture in a business class.
Okay, so those were the instructions that you get before listening to the lecture, right? They just say that you listen to a lecture, 20 seconds to prepare and 60 to speak. Now we're gonna do that. We're gonna listen to that lecture. It's gonna be a business lecture. Please grab a piece of paper and a pen so that you can take notes. Don't type your notes. Try to take them in a piece of paper, because that's how it's gonna be when you're taking the test. And try to organize your notes like this. So if you remember, these were the elements that we're looking for. So you're gonna have first subtopic, second subtopic, first example, and second example, right? Those are the 4 key elements of your lecture. Don't write down anything for the topic yet, okay? Don't take notes for the topic, just subtopic 1, subtopic 2, example 1, and example 2. And we will discuss what the topic was at the end when we are done listening to the whole thing. Okay, so just for now, don't create the chart or anything. Just make sure that it's organized, it's in this order. So subtopic 1, example 1, subtopic 2, and example 2. I'm gonna play the lecture.
If a consumer has to choose between 2 products, what determines the choice? Assume that someone, a purchaser, is choosing between 2 products that cost the same, okay? If people have a choice between two identically priced products, which one will they choose? They choose the one they think is of higher quality, of course. But what does it mean for a product to be a high-quality product? Well, business analysts usually speak of two major factors of quality. One factor is reliability, and the other is what we call features. So reliability. What's reliability? Well, a product is reliable if it works the way we expect it to work, if it can go a reasonable amount of time without needing repairs. If a product, a car for example, doesn't work the way it should and needs repairs too soon, we say it's unreliable. So product reliability means basically the absence of defects or problems that you weren't expecting. It used to be that when people thought about product quality, they thought mainly about reliability. Today, it's different. People do still care about reliability, don't get me wrong. It's just that manufacturing standards are now so high that, we'll take cars for example, today. Today's cars are very reliable. So reliability is important, but it's not going to be the deciding factor. So if reliability isn't the deciding factor anymore, what is? Features, all those extras, the things a product has that aren't really necessary, but that make it easier to use or that make it cool. For example, new cars today are loaded with features like electric windows, sunroofs, air conditioning, stereos, and so forth. When people are comparing products today, they look at features because reliability is pretty much equal across the board. And that's why manufacturers include so many features in their products.
Okay, and here's the question. It comes later after listening to the lecture, and it comes right away, so you gotta pay attention to the question.
Using points and examples from the lecture, explain the two major factors of product quality and how their role in consumer decision-making has changed.
Okay, so that was the question. Now, before we analyze the question and everything else, I want you guys to tell me, what do you think the topic of the lecture was? Now that you have listened to it, what do you think this lecture was about?
Consumer's choice.
Okay, that's a great response. Consumer choices, yes. Anything else? Any other ideas?
The parameters of the quality.
Okay, I like that. Quality parameters, yes. Okay, guys, so that's perfect. Yep. I would say that you're totally right. Those were like the two big things that they talk about. Now, if you realize, you have the same thing in the question, right? You have it here. The question is, using points and examples from the lecture, explain the two major factors of product quality. So those are the parameters of quality, and how their role in consumer decision-making has changed. So that is how a consumer makes decisions, right? So consumer choices. So my advice, that's why I told you not to take so many notes from the intro, because it's not important. Sometimes that introduction, believe it or not, can be even longer than you had here. Sometimes I take like 30, 40 seconds just in the intro. And it could be confusing to try to summarize that or paraphrase it. So my advice, just pay attention to the question and take notes from the question, okay? So this part here in the beginning of the topic, your notes are gonna be extracted from the question, okay? Not from the lecture too much. Of course, you can try to combine it with what you know and what you remember, but make sure that you try to identify those key details here, okay? So in this case, those keywords would be factors of quality and consumer decision-making. So take notes from the question, not exactly from the introduction, okay, for the topic. Now, I think that this is important too, because a lot of times we don't read the questions. Now that you know the structure, most of the time you know what to do, so you're not gonna actually pay attention to the question. And that is a mistake, because sometimes they ask for something that is not exactly what you expect you would be asked about. So it's really important that you read the question, and I think this helps both summarizing the intro and it forces you to kind of pay attention to the question. Okay, so try to take notes from the question, and that will help you too. Now, moving on, as for the subtopics and the examples, do you guys remember what the first subtopic was?
Reliability.
Okay, that is great. Reliability. Reliability. Did we have a definition for reliability?
Yes, well, I took notes. When a product works the way it's supposed to, it's expected to work. It's supposed to, yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to. Okay, when a product works the way it's supposed to work. Okay, great. Anything else you guys want to add there? Okay, that's great. Actually, I think that's something that I wanted to say too. Sometimes you have more than just one definition. I remember that for reliability, the professor mentions 2 or 3 definitions, right? When it works the way it's supposed to, when it meets the expectations, or when it's trustable, I don't know. So you may have more than just one definition, but they are all the same. So try to work with one, because honestly, you won't have a lot of time to explain all of them. So as long as you have one that is clear and that makes sense and that encompasses everything reliability is, then you're okay. So reliability is when a product works the way it's supposed to. What about the example? How does the professor illustrate that concept of reliability?
He gives an example of a car that when it needs frequent repairs, it is unreliable.
Okay. Okay. If a car needs frequent repairs, it's said to be unreliable. Anything else for the example? Okay. What about the second subtopic? Does anybody remember what it was?
Feature.
Okay, great, it's features. And what are features? How is it defined?
Make easier the products.
Okay. Yes, that's right. They make products easier. Anything else? Okay, that's great. That's enough for our notes. And what about the what was the second example? Or the second? Anyone remembers?
And yes, the characteristics in cars, for example, stereo sound or air conditioning, I suppose comfortable couches inside it.
Okay, so yes. Okay, that's right. Yeah, they mention stereos, air conditioning. If I'm not wrong, they mention windows as well, right? Automatic windows. Okay, that's awesome. So those are the key elements, right? So topic 1 and its example, so topic 2 and its example as well. Do you guys have any questions about what we've done so far? No questions? Okay. So now that we have that, then I think we can start working on the template and everything else. So, okay, what else? What else did I want to say here? I think that's it. You may have, as I was telling you, you may have some other additional details, but they are not as important as what we have here. Okay. So now you're supposed to have 20 seconds to prepare. Now, with that time, I recommend you just take a look at your notes please try not to write down full sentences when you're taking notes. Try not to write down exactly what you're gonna say. Believe me, a lot of people try to start writing down the whole response, and it's not possible to do that in 20 seconds, right? So just try to take a look at your notes, go over them. Maybe you can start thinking of some sentences, but you don't have to like create a transcript of your response or anything. That's a terrible idea. And here's what you guys are gonna have to do. So basically, you're supposed to summarize these. You're not allowed to give your opinion because this is an integrated response. So you can never, tell me what you think, right? Or what you know. If you have a different definition for reliability, let's say, please don't use it. Everything that you mention in your response is supposed to be from the lecture, okay? You cannot add anything. So we're just gonna summarize what we have. And in order to do that, we're gonna use this template. Okay, let me show you. So, okay. So remember that you have 60 seconds, right? 1 minute, which is not a lot. So in the beginning, we're gonna have a short introduction. It's gonna last no more than 10 seconds. It could be less, but at most 10 seconds. And then we're gonna have the body. And the body is gonna be divided into two. One for the first subtopic and the other one for the second subtopic. Okay, as you can see, there's no conclusion because we don't need one, and most of the time we won't have time to have a conclusion, but we'll talk about this later. In case you have extra time, you can always add a conclusion, okay? But that's only in case you have extra time. For now, this is what we're gonna do, an introduction and the body. In the introduction, you guys need to explain what the topic is. So here is where you're gonna use what you had from the question, right? Not from the introduction. If you want, you can try to summarize the intro as well, but try to use what you have from the question. So for example, in our example, we had major factors of quality, of product quality and consumer decision-making, right? And this is what Lucia also said. So you can try to use that in your introduction. You can say the lecture discusses, and then you mention what you had in the intro, right? Or in the question. The lecture discusses the two major factors of product quality and how consumers make decisions or consumers' decisions. So that is gonna be your introduction. Supposed to be short and quick. You don't have to explain anything else, just the topic. Careful with the verb discuss. A lot of times we tend to add the word about, but you don't have to have the word about, okay? That preposition is not gonna be used here. So don't say the lecture discusses about, that's wrong, okay? Don't say about. The lecture discusses factors of quality without about. And that is basically the introduction. After we're done with the intro, 10 seconds are over, you can start with the first subtopic. So you're just gonna use some transitions. You're gonna say first for the first subtopic. This is another thing, by the way, careful with the pronouns. In this case, it was a female professor, right? So it's a she, I'm gonna say she. So I think I forgot to mention, but when you're taking notes, as soon as you hear the professor and you notice if it's female or male, make sure that you also write down the pronouns, okay? So if it's a female professor, write down she so that you can remember what the pronoun is. And if it's a male professor, you write down he, right? So you don't get mixed up later. So in this case, we're gonna use she. So first she explains, and you explain the first subtopic, which was reliability, right? So first she explains reliability, which is, and here you can define it or explain it, which is, I don't know, when a product works the way it's supposed to work. And then you give the example. You say, for instance, which means, for example, and you give the example. So you say, the professor mentions that when a car constantly needs repairs and you need to take it to the mechanic so often, it is not a reliable car. So it's your example. Then you need to move on to the second one. So you have your transition. And I'm sorry, this is wrong. I'm missing the pronoun here. So then she goes on to explain, And then you need to explain the second subtopic, right? Features. The professor explains features, you define it, that are the extra characteristics a product has that make them easier to use. And you give the example. You say to illustrate, the professor gives the example of air conditioning, windows, stereos, and you mention the examples. Okay, guys? And that is pretty much it. So as you can see, it's all about keeping the same structure the professor used. I'm trying to use as many transitions as I can. I'm trying to sound a little bit natural as well. That's why it's not everything is so formal. I'm using these that are called reporting verbs, by the way. So I'm acting like a reporter, right? I'm reporting everything that the professor said. So I need to use these reporting verbs like discusses, mentions, explains, points out, gives the example. So those reporting verbs need to be in the simple present, okay? Because they are like opinions and facts. So we report them in the simple present. And that's pretty much it. At the beginning, my advice, try to practice using a template. So when you're practicing, try to use one template. It could be this one, or if you want to change some words, that's okay as well. But try to practice using a template. And little by little, you realize that you're gonna memorize the structure and you'll know it by heart. You know that you have to use a transition, that you have to keep the structure and everything else. So what do you guys think? Any questions, any comments? No?
Hello, Andrea. I just arrived.
Hi, Rodrigo. Hey there. How you doing? By the way, Rodrigo is here. Rodrigo just took the test on Saturday, right? You took it on Saturday.
Yeah, I took it on Saturday morning.
Okay.
It was very, very long, the first impression.
Wow. Okay. Sorry to interrupt. I'm introducing you because we have some new students. So Rodrigo was, well, he's a student here. He was with Shamir and Lucia, and he took the test. So maybe he can tell us a bit about how it was. How was it, Rodrigo?
Okay, I can give you my first impressions about the test. So it was my first time that I taken it. So first of all, you should take it at home or at the UTEPSA if you live in Santa Cruz. One tip I could give you. Many of the students that were taking it at the same time as me already took it at the CBA, but they told me that there were a lot of people when they took it, like 26 or 30. So when you take the test, everybody's taking the test, but at their own pace. So they are gonna be speaking out loud while you're in the writing section or in the reading section. It annoys a lot. So it's gonna mess you with your time. So I've taken it at the UTEPSA, so we were only 6, so it was good. That wasn't very bad to me. Then the reading section is very, very hard, but I would say the listening section is the hardest. Yeah, because of its length. I don't know why, but it took like 8 listenings, like 8 or 9. I don't know why it was so long. Normally, I've seen in YouTube that it's only 17 minutes or something like that. But at the beginning, we had 17 minutes and then 6.5, 6.5, 6.5. So I don't know why there were so many listenings. So yeah, the test it began at 8:30, 8:45, I would say. We finished at 12:45, like for almost 4 hours. Yeah. So yeah, those are my first impressions. I would suggest you to take it at home or in a test center that you know that there are not gonna be many people. Yeah, they gave me the reading and the listening sections scores right away, and I'm waiting for the other results that they're gonna give me on Friday. Yeah. And I was actually surprised about the listening because I had 27 score, and I was thinking I did it very badly because of the quantity of the listenings. I was so tired, and you should have a breakfast and sleep very well, because that 4 hours, it's like you're gonna feel them like 3 minutes, because it's gonna go really quickly. But you're gonna be so tired all the time because of you have already taken the reading, and it's very tiring, the reading, and then you have to listen to 8 listenings in my case, and then to speak, and then the writing of, you're like, if you haven't had breakfast, you're gonna that's gonna mess you up. Yeah. You should take snacks. I would say snacks. You're allowed to take snacks and eat them during the break. There's a break between the listening and the speaking. That's it. The speaking part, I would say it's not that hard as I was expecting to. But that's because I practice a lot my speaking for the tasks. Yeah, those are my tips and impressions, I would say. I'm very thankful with Andrea. Yeah, she taught me so much about the speaking sections and the writing sections. No, the reading section. So thank you a lot, Andrea. And that's it.
Hey, Rodrigo, no, thank you for going in today and telling us about your experience. And yeah, I think those are great tips. You're right. I'm kind of freaked out for the listening because yeah, it's not supposed to be that long. But I'm really glad that you got your scores. They were really good scores, and I think that the writing and speaking should be good as well. So thank you so much, Rodrigo.
You're welcome. I will keep you updated with the scores on Friday.
Yeah, I would love to hear your scores for speaking and writing too. But I'm sure they went well, and you should be relieved, right? Because
yeah, it's well, I was very, very happy at the end of the test when I got the scores of the listening part, especially when I saw the 27 at listening. I was like shocked, completely shocked. Like at the break, I thought, okay, I did it pretty bad at listening, so I have to make it up with the speaking and the writing section. So I did those sections, especially the writing sections. I wrote like 350 words at the latest section, and the first that you're supposed to write like between 150 and 225. I wrote 260, but I wrote it like in complete sentences, like very organized paragraphs and structured. And I tried to use as many linking words and transitions words as I remembered. Therefore, however, all those words that yeah. So I think the writing part went well, and the speaking part, yeah. I would say that first task is you got very nervous at the first task when you are supposed to speak about the disagreement, or well, you have two options and you have to choose between one of them, and that is very yeah, you get nervous at the beginning because it's your first speaking. So I got nervous actually, and I didn't give examples. I gave reasons, but I didn't have the time to explain my examples of the reasons that I gave. But I had the time to have a conclusion. Yeah, okay. So don't get so nervous at the speaking part. Just do it, and that's it. Yeah.
Okay, Rodrigo. So thank you again. I think we'll all be really grateful for your tips. And yeah, I look forward to hearing from you when you get your results back. And we'll see.
Thank you. Thank you.
You, Rodrigo, take care.
Take care, you too.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I will be here maybe next classes to just to review.
Okay, yeah, of course you can do that. You haven't finished the course at the end of the day.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Okay,
Bye.
guys. So yes. Going back to this. Okay, task 4. We were working on the template, right? Did you have any questions about this? About the structure and the template, or what you have to do? Do you? Okay.
No, I suppose I don't have questions.
Okay, you don't have questions. That's good. I'm gonna go once, okay, just to show you the time part mainly. So I'll try it once with what I remember from the lecture. Let's see how it goes. And then we'll try to practice, okay? We'll try to do as much, try to practice as much as we can, but either way, tomorrow you'll be practicing with just money. So it's okay if we don't practice that much. Okay, guys, I'm gonna try to use the template tool, and I'm gonna try to make it on time. Okay, so here's my timer, if you can see it. It's set for 1 minute. So wish me luck. Okay. Okay, let's go. So the lecture discusses consumer decision making and the 2 major factors that influence product quality. First, the professor explains reliability, which is defined as when a product meets the consumer's expectations. That is to say, when the product works the way it's supposed to work and doesn't need repairs too soon. For instance, the professor gives the example of cars, and a car is said to be reliable when one works the way it should and the consumer is not worried about taking it to the mechanics too soon. Then she goes on to explain features, which are defined as those extra characteristics that a product has that, even though are not necessary, they may make the product easier to use or more comfortable for the consumer. To illustrate, the professor gives the examples of air conditioning, windows, stereos, and so forth when manufacturing cars. Okay, so I try to manage my time the way that I told you to, 10 seconds, 25 and 25. Try to be balanced, although I think that maybe I spoke too much for the first one and I didn't explain as much the second one, but I try to make it in time. I didn't have a conclusion. I tried to use the template as well. I used those reporting verbs. I wasn't so detailed, right? I didn't mention everything that was mentioned in the lecture because we won't have as much time to mention everything. So you need to maybe skip some details that are less relevant and focus on those elements that we talked about, right? The subtopics and the examples. So is it okay now? Any questions? Okay, guys. So, yes, Mark?
Is there a website where we can practice this part?
Website. So there are actually many websites. I can send you, if you want, some links that I found that are for free. Now, honestly, most of them and the best ones are paid subscriptions that you need to get. But what I would suggest, you remember from the simulation tests that you have. So there you're gonna find a total of 10 complete tests, or simulation tests. So you should find a lot of practice there. And I think that that's pretty close to what you'll have on the actual test, because they are actual TOEFL pass tests. So I feel that that will be the best way for you guys to practice. But either way, I can send you some links to where you can find some more practice. Okay, guys. Any other question? Okay. I don't know what other tips I can give you. I think this is everything that I already mentioned. Try to don't waste your time too much in the intro additional details. Take notes, use those transitions, reporting verbs. Maybe this is what Rodrigo was mentioning, right? If you're taking it in a test center, try to practice in a noisy room so that you become used to having other people around speaking and maybe doing some noises. So practice in a noisy room. Practice as much as you can, record your responses, you record yourself, and make sure that you try to actively evaluate how you're doing. Don't forget to read the question. And I think that's pretty much everything I could say. But I'd like to do one practice, at least one. So maybe we can. Okay. I don't know which one we could do. Let's do this one here. Okay. So please take notes. I'm gonna play the other lecture. This is gonna be our first practice. I'm gonna play the lecture. Make sure that you catch those 4 elements, right? Well, the topic, subtopic 1, subtopic 2, and the 2 examples. Here we go.
Now listen to part of a lecture in a psychology class.
When people are in difficult situations, sometimes they experience feelings of helplessness or psychological pain. So what do? They unconsciously use strategies called defense mechanisms to protect themselves psychologically from their painful emotions. Let's say a woman has a pet dog. She's had this dog for a long time, and he's kept her company and guarded her for years, but one day he runs away. This woman looks everywhere and asks other people if they've seen her dog, but she just can't find him. Now, she feels helpless and sad because she misses her dog, so she'll unconsciously find ways to deal with her painful feelings. One defense mechanism she might use is fantasy. With fantasy, the woman uses her imagination. So instead of just feeling helpless and sad about her lost dog, she invents a happy story in her mind. She might imagine that a nice family found him and feeds him, and that he's really happy with them. She'll picture the dog playing, running around, having fun. Because of this fantasy, she doesn't have to feel sad about her dog running away. It's a fantasy. It's not real, but it keeps her pain away. Another defense mechanism she might use is what we call sublimation. Sublimation is different from fantasy because sublimation isn't about pretending. It's about turning negative emotions into something useful, practical. So the woman might start a dog training school. That way, by training dogs, perhaps she can help prevent other people's dogs from running away like hers did. In other words, with sublimation as a defense mechanism, the woman redirects her negative feelings about losing her dog into a positive, constructive activity.
And here's the question.
Using points and examples from the talk, describe the 2 defense mechanisms mentioned by the professor.
Okay, using points and examples from the talk, describe the 2 defense mechanisms mentioned by the professor. Starting now, you'll have 20 seconds to prepare your response. Okay, guys, so I want to ask, is there anyone who would like to try?
Can I try?
Yeah, sure, Luciana.
Okay, thanks. The lecture discusses defense mechanisms, which are the ways in which individuals deal with certain situations. She explains a situation when a woman loses a dog. She sometimes acts in 2 ways, which are the 2 defense mechanisms. First, the defense mechanism called fantasy, in which the woman pictures that a dog has been found by a nice family, is happy, is being treated well. It helps her cope with the situation. The second defense mechanism she discusses is called sublimation, in which one turns the negative emotion into something useful. The professor gives example of a dog training school that the woman will open so that no one has to pass through the situation of losing their dog again.
Okay, great. That was perfect. Congrats, Luciana. Well done.
Thanks.
So awesome. One thing I liked about your response, and I think could be useful, I like how you you introduced the topic at the beginning. The lecture discusses defense mechanisms. You took the time to even explain a bit what it was about. And then you introduced the example in the beginning, right? Because the example was the same. So you said the professor gives the example of a woman who loses her dog and she has to cope with this. And then you started mentioning the 2. So I think that's a great idea for you guys. In case the example is the same for both, if you feel that that's going to help you save time, because it really helps saving time, you can mention the example in the beginning as well. And then you don't have to repeat it all over again when you come here. So you don't have to explain the context anymore. So I think that's really great. What else? Don't forget the definitions, though. You mentioned the second one. Maybe the first one you just went for the example. Right? Don't forget.
Okay.
Okay, guys. So tomorrow you'll practice with Jasmani. I know that you haven't practiced as much, so it may not feel like you have already mastered it, but tomorrow you'll have time to practice this task. What do you think, though? Do you have any questions, any comments before we go? No questions? Okay. Then please don't forget to fill out the daily survey before you go. And I'll be seeing
Andrea, can you send us like the whole speaking section presentation, please?
Okay, yeah, sure, we'll do. Okay, guys. So thank you so much for joining. I'll see you next class. Have a nice night.
Good night, Andrea.
Thanks, see you.
Goodbye,
Bye.
Andrea. We'll see you on Wednesday.
Yep, see you tomorrow.